Hi, my name's Grant Eric, and I'd like to look at the link between alcohol and aggressive behavior through three different research methods: experiments, surveys, and field research, specifically non-participant observance, and how these methods can be used to draw conclusions about alcohol use and aggressive behavior. To start off, we're going to look at the experiment method of research. We're going to use deductive research by starting with a question. And I'd like to pose the question: does alcohol consumption increase the likelihood of violent behavior? After we pose the question, we would form a hypothesis either for or against our question. And then we would proceed with the experiment and collect data and identify patterns for and against our hypothesis. There are several key points to experiments that allow for effective interpretation of the data. The experiment must be in a controlled setting so that there cannot be any outside influence on the variables. The variables must be able to be measured in a useful way. This may seem difficult in regards to the dependent variable or aggressive behavior, but we can use indicators such as verbal and physical confrontation to measure aggressive behavior, and we must be able to draw a conclusion as to whether or not the hypothesis was correct. In addition, we need both a control group and experimental group chosen at random. We have a control group so that we know we wouldn't have the same level of aggressive behavior in a group that had not been drinking as compared to the group that had been drinking, or the experimental group. We also need a group that best fits the population that we wish to study. This is also called generalizability. We must randomly assign the people in the study to either the control group or the experimental group to ensure accurate results. And then we must add the independent variable, or consumption of alcohol, to the experimental group and measure the dependent variable, or aggressive behavior. So now we have our control group. They were randomly selected, and they are at the party, at the club, and they are not drinking alcohol. And then we have the experimental group, who have been randomly selected also, but they're going to drink and party at the club. Now we can measure the levels of aggressive behavior based on indicators such as the verbal and physical confrontations. The second method of research I would like to talk about is the survey method. There must be the survey method must also have a random sampling designed to represent the desired population. The survey must have clear and understandable questions. It should offer more than 2 answers to each question and should allow for quantifiable results. The survey should offer more than 2 answers to each question so that it is not just a yes or no question. There are oftentimes many different levels of how often something occurs, as seen on the next slide. So here's 2 survey questions and answers relevant to alcohol and aggressive behavior. How many drinks on average do you consume per week? A, none. B, 1 to 3. C, 4 to 7. D, 7 to 10. E, more than 10. Do physical/verbal confrontations occur when you consume alcohol? A, never. B, rarely. C, sometimes. D, frequently. E, always. So as you can see, we can actually put a quantifiable number with these answers to the survey. The second question may not seem as though it is a quantifiable measurement, but we can assign numbers to each of the answers and use those for quantifiable data. And the third mode of research is field research, or non-participant observation. The observer must be unknown to those being studied, so that the people being studied cannot change their behavior. because they know the observer is watching them. In our case, a good control group would be a gathering of people where alcohol is not consumed, and a group at a bar or party, I guess gathering, where alcohol is consumed. And the researcher must perform unbiased research to achieve accurate qualitative results. So, in other words, the researcher cannot let his personal ideals and values reflect the data that be reflected in the data that he or she gathers. So now a couple keys to all three of these research methods. The independent and dependent variable must be measurable directly or through indicators, as is the case with our alcohol consumption and aggressive behavior. For the experiment and field research method, control groups must be used to ensure justifiable data, to make sure that in the experimental group the same level of aggressive behavior would not have been found in a group that had not consumed alcohol. And all of the research methods must measure randomly selected groups that fit the desired research population. In addition, while closing, it also must be noted that all of the findings in these experiments do not create hard facts. They simply provide reasoning for phenomena to happen. In other words, we cannot expect the same results to occur every time, but we can form predictions and trends based on the data that we collect to explain these phenomena. This is also called probabilistic.